In my past life, both my brother and I were the great hopes of our family. My father took my brother to the frontier to build a career on the battlefield, but he was timid by nature, loving only embroidery and music. In the end, he died in battle after a defeat. I was sent to the palace to become an imperial consort, but my fiery temper led me to draw my sword and pursue the emperor through the imperial gardens, where I was shot dead by arrows. When I opened my eyes again, my brother and I had been reborn together. The imperial decree appointing me as a consort arrived at our home. My brother clung to my leg, weeping. "Sister! My only sister! I beg you, go to war instead. I'll take your place as the imperial consort." Main text: in my past life, both my brother and I met tragic ends. He was refined and courteous, skilled in both music and embroidery. Yet my father sent him to the frontier to earn military glory, where he perished in a crushing defeat. I heard his body was severed in two, a most undignified death. As for me, raised since childhood on the frontier, I excelled at horseback riding and archery. Yet I entered the palace as an imperial consort. I fought the empress to the death. In the end, neither of us emerged victorious. I lost my brother, and she lost her father. The emperor brought my stepsister into the palace, telling me she was his one true love. News of my brother's death reached the imperial capital just as the emperor was celebrating his stepsister's birthday banquet. My stepmother said, "Each person has their own fate." Second brother died standing tall, without dishonoring the Pei family name. With that, she began recounting the emperor's beautiful romance with my stepsister. "In the palace henceforth, you sisters united will have each other's support. Family, above all, must be whole and complete." Her words seemed sincere, perhaps she truly desired reunion. A kind-hearted soul like mine cannot bear to see others' wishes unfulfilled. But there was a problem: for a family to be truly whole, no piece could be missing. My brother was dead, a true reunion was impossible. When you help someone, see it through to the end. I drew my treasured black iron sword, first slaying my stepmother, then chasing the emperor into the imperial gardens. I pursued, he fled, but he couldn't escape. Alas, he had reinforcements. A hail of arrows struck me down. But it didn't matter. Before dying, I also slew my stepsister, newly crowned empress. I wonder if the emperor plans to execute my father next. With our entire clan wiped out, our family can finally reunite in the afterlife. Chaos swirled before my eyes. I couldn't explain this phenomenon, but I had indeed been reborn. And I sensed my brother had been reborn too. Peiyu burst into my room, pale and distraught. "Eldest sister, you must flee. Once the imperial decree appointing you consort arrives, it'll be too late. With your explosive temper, you'd never make a suitable imperial consort." My brother died young, knowing only that I struggled in the harem, locked in constant conflict with the empress. He never learned of my solo rampage through the imperial gardens after his death. If he knew, he'd likely urge me to flee even more urgently. Before I could respond, my father joyfully summoned me out. "Pei Yan, come receive the imperial decree. His Majesty's boundless grace, the emperor wishes to appoint you as imperial consort." Peiyu turned pale upon hearing this, his lips trembling as he murmured, "It's over. Even in this second life, I still couldn't save my elder sister?" I thought to myself, he'd be better off saving himself. As the old saying goes, with a stepmother comes a stepfather. The ancients truly spoke the truth. After my mother died, my stepmother entered the household. Fearing her cruelty, my uncle took me to the frontier to raise me, while Peiyu was sent to Dong'an Mountain to study. Beyond his studies, Peiyu loved painting and playing the zither, refined and handsome, yet utterly incapable of manual labor. I, on the other hand, was skilled at chasing chickens and scolding dogs, riding horses and shooting arrows, yet utterly lacking in virtue, grace, speech, or merit. At festive banquets, the embroidery I presented was always done by my brother. Had he remained stationed at the frontier, once our uncle passed, he'd likely have met a gruesome end. But with the imperial edict delivered to our doorstep, escape was no longer an option. I patted Peiyu's shoulder, signaling him to stay calm. We'll meet force with force. Worst case, I'll slash them all down. I've died once, what's there to fear? Peiyu's eyes lit up at my words. Sister, you mean you're also... I gave him an affirmative look, leading him outside to kneel and receive the imperial decree. While bowing in gratitude for the emperor's grace, my mind raced. How could Peiyu and I find a way to survive this? I couldn't exactly storm in with a sword and slash the emperor to death, could I? It might feel satisfying, but that would be a waste of my second chance at life. My father and stepmother beamed with joy, repeatedly urging me to serve the emperor diligently once in the palace and not bring shame upon our family. The empress holds great power. Be wary of her once you enter the palace. My half-sister Pei Su's eyes brimmed with tears. It wasn't that she was reluctant to see me go, she simply fancied the emperor herself. Truth be told, the emperor fancied her too. But he couldn't stand up to the empress. Fearing Pei Su would suffer in the palace, he pinned the blame squarely on me. That way, the empress would focus all her venom on me while he and Pei Su could enjoy their moonlit trysts. Once the empress fell from power, the emperor promptly brought Pei Su into the palace. Damn it all, I'd never touched a needle in my life, yet I ended up embroidering Pei Su's wedding gown. This is beyond what any dog could endure. My father was about to launch into another tirade, but I couldn't bear it anymore. I slammed my hand down on the table. I need some quiet. The table trembled, a crack appearing in its surface. My father trembled too, likely recalling how my birth mother, in her prime, had once hacked the rock garden to pieces with a single stroke. He cautiously led my stepmother and Pei Su out, not even daring to make a sound as he closed the door. My brother asked if we could run. Run? How? What's the point of living in hiding? My brother stammered. Then. You go back to the palace, and I'll keep fighting? We'll both prevent trouble before it starts. He rubbed his eyes and sighed deeply. Sis, I really want to be an official, but I just can't be a military officer. I don't know how to use swords or spears. Peiyu grew increasingly despondent. Better I enter the palace while you fight. At least I can embroider and paint, might even charm the emperor. I froze. Don't say that. You really shouldn't. Could this actually work? After all, that dog emperor never set foot in my room last lifetime. I studied my brother closely. Peiyu and I share the same mother, we're nearly the same height now, though he's fairer and more delicate than I am. If he were to apply makeup, draw his brows, and don women's clothing, he'd likely look more like a girl than I do. He still wore a troubled expression, mentally preparing for his journey to the frontier, when I suddenly interrupted him. What if? You went to the palace? Peiyu froze. I was just joking. How could a man like me enter the palace? I arched an eyebrow and smiled, smoothing his hair. Why not? Didn't you attend banquets in my place, dressed as a woman, several times already? My brother had truly exhausted every idea for the sake of my maiden name. Fearing the capital's folk would deem me uncouth from the frontier, he'd attended banquets in skirts, mastered an uncannily authentic imitation of my voice, as sweet as a nightingale, and composed poetry and paintings in my name. Even after I entered the palace, the empress repeatedly asked why I'd stopped writing verse. How could that compare to being in the palace? Ah, practice makes perfect. I'll go to the frontier to fight alongside Uncle, while you enter the palace as a fake imperial consort. You can't help Uncle, but I can. As long as Uncle remains the military governor, even if we set fire to the emperor's audience hall, he'd still praise how splendidly it burns. Peiyu remained silent. After a long pause, he clenched his teeth and asked, "Does the emperor not use backdoor methods?" I smacked him on the forehead. What kind of thoughts occupy a scholar's mind day after day? The emperor was in a great hurry to have this consort. One might think his mother had died, and he was rushing to marry for good luck. The above remarks contain some personal grudges, mainly, I'm still bitter I didn't finish him off in my past life. Peiyu dressed up and took my place in the imperial carriage entering the palace. I left behind a letter, mounted a horse alone, and rode straight for Yanmen Pass. I heard that when Peiyu entered the palace, my father was deeply reluctant to let me go. Everyone praised my father for his profound love for his daughter, praising how difficult it was to raise the 2 children left behind by his first wife. Ha! He never realized the child he kept was his own weak, helpless son. The frontier remained unchanged, yellow sand swirled endlessly, old trees stood with crows perched in gloom. Peiyu's journey to Yanmen Pass back then was a forced hand, my father personally cut off his path to officialdom. But this time, I came of my own free will. My uncle, the military governor, commands the frontier with a valiant and battle-hardened force. Pity the renowned general, he didn't die on the battlefield, but perished in the court. In my past life, my father colluded with the emperor to withhold provisions and reinforcements. My uncle defended the city gates to the death, sacrificing himself for the people within. Truthfully, had he simply retreated with his troops, he might have avoided this calamity. But the invading Turkic commander was a brutal man. With every city he captured, he ordered his soldiers to slaughter the populace, leaving scarcely 1 in 10 survivors. Such is the way of the world, the virtuous seldom live long. Cunning villains like my father and the emperor, however, bask in wealth and glory, towering above all others. But it matters not. The Peiyu of my past life could not aid my uncle. I can. With this resolve, I spurred my horse onward, racing straight for the army's encampment. A narrow path through barren hills. My uncle, expecting Peiyu, had sent men to greet the visitor. The one who arrived was my uncle's deputy commander, Su Hengji. Having heard Peiyu was a scholarly gentleman, he had even arranged a carriage. Second young master, you must be weary from the journey? Su Hengji dismounted, his sword-like brows and starry eyes radiating a heroic presence. His silver armor glinted brilliantly in the sunlight. My gaze lingered briefly on his face. In my past life, he too had perished in the battle to defend the city. Later, Peiyu had entrusted someone to deliver a jade pendant to me. The jade was fine, but the carving was crude. I knew it was Su Hengji who had carved it himself. Seeing me motionless atop the mound, Su Hengji stepped forward. Scared? Your sister didn't flinch when she entered the palace. What are you afraid of? I turned, lifting my conical hat. Hengji, it's me. Su Hengji startled, stumbling back several paces. How could it be you? After a moment, Su Hengji grasped the crucial point. Then, who was the one who entered the palace? I gave him a confirming look. Peiyu. Su Hengji's expression darkened instantly. Though we were surrounded by desolate mountains and wilderness, he instinctively lowered his voice. This is treason punishable by death. If discovered, both you and Peiyu will die. I leaned against the tree trunk, a faint smile curling my lips. Even without treason, Peiyu and I would die. If uncle remained the military governor, commanding vast armies, neither Peiyu nor I would ever face danger. What are you afraid of? Do you think I'd be happy if I entered the palace? Su Hengji's eyes flickered, his lashes lowered. After a moment, he exhaled deeply. I wouldn't be happy. If I entered the palace, I wouldn't be happy. Then that settles it. Hengji, mount up. I swung onto my horse, turning back with a smile. Let me see if your riding skills have deteriorated in my absence. Nonsense. Seeing me appear in the command tent, my uncle slammed his fist on the table in fury. If either of you comes to harm, how will I ever face your mother? My uncle came from humble origins, wandering with my mother to survive when I was young. After mother died, he treated me as his own daughter. Every martial skill I possess was taught to me personally by him. Compared to my biological father, he was more like a father to both me and Peiyu. Thinking of how tragically he had died in my past life, my heart couldn't help but tremble. Uncle, if I go to the palace instead and Peiyu comes to the frontier, will that lead to a good outcome? Peiyu studied at Dong'an Mountain since childhood, yet the emperor despised him and barred him from taking the imperial examinations. People all say his poetry failed to win the emperor's favor. What a joke. That good-for-nothing ruler wouldn't bother reading a scholar's verses. It was my father who personally destroyed Peiyu's future. Shock flashed across my uncle's weathered face. What does this have to do with your father? Even a tiger wouldn't devour its own cubs. My uncle could never have imagined my father would harm his own son. Pei-su and His Majesty developed feelings for each other. The sachets she embroidered herself still hang from His Majesty's belt. Then why did the imperial decree to enter the palace fall upon me? I lifted my head, my expression tinged with faint sarcasm. Because the Empress holds immense power. Neither my father nor the emperor could bear to see Pei-su suffer, so they sent me to the palace to challenge the Empress. Uncle, father's blade has long been poised over my sister and me. Seizing the moment while my uncle was too stunned to speak, I continued, it's not just me and Peiyu. You, too, are a thorn in the emperor's side. Your military achievements are legendary, you hold the rank of military governor, your titles are beyond measure, and the armies under your command are invincible. Have you ever considered that it's not just the Turks who are intimidated? My uncle was furious. The Turks are watching us like tigers waiting to pounce. How could His Majesty even entertain such thoughts? Better to face foreign enemies than traitors within. The emperor would rather see border villagers suffer under the Turks than risk his power slipping away. My words were earnest. Uncle, this isn't recklessness. I refuse to be a stepping stone for others, dying without knowing why. After a long moment, my uncle exhaled, collapsing into his chair as if drained of strength. He knew I never spoke without reason, nor would I deceive him with lies for the sake of recklessness. Leave now. Let me think. I saluted and rose in silence. As I reached the tent entrance, my uncle suddenly called out. Peiyu is in the palace. Could it be? His voice faltered. After a moment's hesitation, he finished, could it be that they've discovered he's a man? My reply was firm, no. Of course not. The emperor was currently engrossed in his affair with Pei-su, utterly disinterested in seeking me out. After all, Pei-su had spun him countless tales of her sister on the frontier. In the emperor's eyes, I was a bloodthirsty, British woman, a terrifying figure. He had no desire to find me. All I needed to do was represent the Pei family and keep the Empress in check. Peiyu had died once before, he should be able to handle this minor task. If he couldn't, then as his elder sister, I'd be too far away to help him in his hour of need. All I could do would be to light a stick of incense for his soul. Finally arriving safely at the frontier, the wind and sand blowing around me, my heart felt as though it had finally settled. In my past life, my actions within the palace were constantly thwarted. I could only watch helplessly as my uncle and Peiyu met tragic ends. Thankfully, I've been granted a second chance. This time, regardless of victory or defeat, I, Pei Yan, will never die in such a pathetic manner again. Not far away, Su Hengji stood waiting beneath a tree. His eyes half closed in drowsiness, dust speckled his hair. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting dappled light across his face. As if eyes grew on his crown, he lifted his gaze the moment I emerged. What did the general say? I shrugged, what else could he say? I'm already here, sending me back wouldn't do. He sighed and shook his head. The general's never been able to handle you. Still, this time you were truly reckless, Yen. You must conceal your identity. Su Hengji's expression grew grave. The general doesn't rule the army alone. His Majesty's reach extends far. I smiled. If his reach is too long, we'll just cut it off. I reached out, deftly drawing Su Hengji's long sword from his waist, twirled it in a flourish, and struck the tree trunk with a single slash. Hengji, having come this far, am I supposed to just sit here and wait for death? Su Hengji's eyes lit up as he handed me the scabbard. Of course not. That night, my uncle summoned me. By candlelight, hesitation still lingered in his expression. Yen, I believe what you said today. But is joining the army for Peiyu truly the best course? His words were earnest, carrying an elder's deepest hopes for a young girl. You are, after all, a maiden. Surely you won't actually fight on the battlefield? Why not? Am I weaker than the soldiers under your command? Uncle, in these turbulent times, if a woman lacks skills and merely drifts with the currents, can she truly expect a good end? If we're talking about wealth and status, wouldn't it be better for me to enter the palace? At least I'd have food on the table, sheltered from wind and rain. Even if wars erupt and the Turks invade the Central Plains, I'd be the last to die. But is that truly a good life? To entrust one's very existence to others, I refuse such a fate. I'd rather endure hardship on the frontier than be a delicate flower in the imperial capital, unable to withstand the slightest storm. Uncle gazed at me for a long moment before sighing deeply. He rose and retrieved a brocade box from behind him. Within lay a dagger, its blade gleaming coldly. Candlelight reflected off it, illuminating half my face. Very well. I shall entrust you with our family heirloom dagger. Since you've sworn this oath, Ian, prove yourself worthy. Show me something of substance. And never speak of regret. I took the box, knelt upright, and kowtowed 3 times to my uncle. I shall not betray your trust, General. Very well. After remaining in the camp as Peiyu, my actions proved far easier than in my previous life. My uncle assigned trusted aides to attend to me. I also commissioned custom-made boots and shoes. After these alterations, I appeared much more robust, possessing a certain youthful vigor. Even those who knew me well dared not mistake me for Pei Yan. After all, abandoning the pampered life of an imperial consort to endure the sandstorms of the frontier, no sane person would do such a thing. But I was not sane. Since our earnest conversation, my uncle often brought me to the military camp. Only Su Hengji knew the truth. While my uncle and I were well received, he alone worried daily. Hengji, ease your mind. Su Hengji shook his head with a bitter smile. As long as the war rages on, I cannot find peace. We walked out while discussing the movements of the Turks. Suddenly, a commotion erupted in the distance. 2 groups stood facing each other at the edge of the training ground, swords drawn and bows strung. Were it not for the military ban on fighting, a brawl would likely have erupted in the next instant. Each faction had a leader. One side comprised soldiers under my uncle's command, mostly from border counties, poor families who joined the army out of desperation. The other consisted of imperial capital nobles seeking to polish their resumes, eager to earn military merits for future political advancement back in the capital. What's all this commotion? Got nothing better to do? I called out to stop them. Seeing Su Hengji and me approach, Qian Yu, the centurion under my uncle's command, sheathed his partially drawn sword with a cold snort and explained, "We request Deputy Commander Pei to settle this dispute." On the other side, a fair-skinned, somewhat delicate-looking young noble sneered. "You lowly commoners! Don't you know who I am? How dare you compete with me for the training platform?" I had met this man once before. Hu Jiangnan, son of the Marquis of Chongyan and cousin to His Majesty, was the most privileged among the young nobles here seeking to enhance their credentials. Beside him, someone briefly explained the sequence of events. Today, Qian Yu and his men were supposed to practice on the training platform, but Hu Jiangnan's group had seized the spot. The 2 factions had long disliked each other, and a heated argument erupted immediately. I cast a cold glance at Hu Jiangnan and said in a chilling tone, "Hu Jiangnan, once you enter the military camp, you are a soldier regardless of your status. The military has its own rules. You violated military discipline by arguing with others. I sentence you to 10 strokes of the cane. Any objections? Hu Jiangnin's expression darkened. You dare! I lowered my eyelashes, concealing the mockery in my eyes. Why wouldn't I dare? The emperor, wary of his uncle, often filled the military with his own people. As the emperor's cousin, I'd long disliked Hu Jiangnin. Guards! Military punishment! Drag him away for 10 strokes of the military cane. Hu Jiangnin drew his sword with a clang. I am Hu Jiangnin, son of the Marquis of Chongyan and the Princess of Ning'an. Let's see who dares touch me. Those around hesitated, exchanging nervous glances. No one wished to offend the powerful unless absolutely necessary. Seeing this, Hu Jiangnin smirked triumphantly. Pei Yu, don't think I don't know your background. What are you playing at here? A failed scholar who couldn't pass the imperial exams, yet you've become a deputy commander in the army? It's laughable. I curved my lips. Is that so? Turning, I grabbed a nearby military baton and lashed it across Hu Jiangnin's knee. Today, I'll show you what it means to be both scholarly and martial. Hu Jiangnin let out a wail as I knocked him to his knees. I flexed my knuckles, swung the baton, and chased him down, landing 10 solid blows. The pampered young master, never having been struck before, wailed pitifully under my blows. After finishing him off, I leaned the staff against the wall and declared loudly, I know many of you secretly look down on me. Just some bookworm who's never even seen a battlefield, what gives him the right to boss me around? I mimicked the soldier's casual chatter in a rough voice, though my expression remained unruffled. Their disdain was understandable. After all, I was new here. Even with my uncle's backing, most saw me as nothing more than a greenhorn, too weak to lift a finger, yet somehow appointed deputy commander. It was no wonder they weren't convinced. Today, I'll take this chance. Anyone still dissatisfied? Step up for a duel. I kicked aside Hu Jiangnin and leapt onto the training platform. Come on. If you miss this chance, you won't get another. The men below exchanged glances, but none dared to move. I wasn't in a hurry, waiting leisurely. If no one steps forward, any future slander against me will be dealt with by military law. I'll do it! A burly man in cloth armor gritted his teeth and shouted from below the platform. He leaped up, a long sword in hand. Towering half a head above me, he looked down with contempt. Lieutenant Pei keeps his word. If I wound you, don't come crying to your daddy. I curved my lips, tapping the ground with my baton. Too much chatter. The soldier roared and charged with his blade. I sidestepped effortlessly. Too slow. As I spoke, my baton whipped through the air with fierce momentum, lashing the soldier with a stinging wind. Seizing his momentary flinch, I rose on my toes and kicked his blade-wielding wrist. The force sent the sword flying from his grasp. My baton now pressed horizontally against his throat. That was enough. I tilted my chin up, grinning. Next. Seeing me dispatch the burly man so decisively, the soldiers below grew restless. Before he could step down, another leaped up impatiently. I'll trade blows with Deputy General Pei. After deflecting 17 men in succession, I too felt the strain and leaned against my baton to rest. Well? Deputy General Pei is formidable. The roaring cheers below drew glances from several generals emerging from the command tent. Upon hearing the cause, they couldn't help but chuckle. Truly, heroes emerge in youth. Commander, Deputy General Pei truly embodies your former glory. We knew Deputy General Pei excelled in studies, but never imagined his martial arts were this formidable. My uncle and I exchanged a distant glance, both unable to suppress a hint of amusement at these words. If it were truly Pei Yu here, he'd likely be carried away by now. My brother truly is a delicate flower, even a slight breeze could blow him away. Thinking of Pei Yu, my smile faltered slightly. No news had come from the capital. I wondered how he fared in the palace. But given the current situation, no news was good news. After dismissing the crowd, I finally leaped down from the training platform. Turning around, I spotted Hu Jiangyan crouched beneath a tree. "What are you doing sitting there?" Hu Jiangyan pouted, fidgeting awkwardly for a long moment, looking every bit like an unmarried maiden. "If you don't speak, I'm leaving." With that, I turned away without another word. Moments later, Hu Jiangyan's voice reached me from behind. "Pei Yu, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said you couldn't pass the imperial exams. You're better than me." I froze, then turned back. Hu Jiangyan had already bolted away, leaving me staring in astonishment at the setting sun. It was rare for an aristocrat's son to utter such human words. After sparring on the training platform, the grumbling about me within the army subsided considerably. That's how it is in the barracks, might makes right. But my journey to Yanmen Pass wasn't solely to succeed my uncle. Though I harbored personal motives, I genuinely sought to save the people of Dingbei Commandery. In my past life, after my uncle's death, the army was leaderless and the court lacked capable men. The Turks seized the opportunity, breaching the pass and advancing deep into the central plains. Border commanderies, led by Dingbei, fell one after another. The Turks were brutal and bloodthirsty, leaving countless dead and wounded among the people, forcing them into exile. Wherever the Turks went, it became a living hell. The Ashina clan worships the Wolf King, claiming descent from him. Born of nomadic ways, they know only the law of the jungle, fearing might but not virtue. Conciliatory policies will likely prove ineffective. My uncle studied the sand table and nodded. "What do you suggest, Ian? How should we deal with the Turkic Khanate?" "Subdue them through force, naturally. But the steppes are vast and sparsely populated. Even if we drive the Ashina clan back to their homeland, allowing them to recuperate over winter, they will surely stir unrest along our borders again next year. This is no long-term solution. I've heard the Ashina clan is not a monolithic entity. Their current brotherly cooperation stems from the allure of the Celestial Empire's bounty, which has them scrambling for a piece of the pie. If we could sow discord among them, leaving them preoccupied with internal strife, our subsequent attack would be far easier." My uncle laughed heartily. "Well said." He pointed at the sand table, outlining his strategic plan. Yet a wave of bitterness welled up within me. In my past life, my uncle had similarly devised plans for the borderlands people. Yet the emperor, fearing uncle's growing influence, tacitly allowed father to murder uncle's entire family. 100,000 soldiers perished in battle, 3 frontier counties fell. So many innocent lives lost, only to earn the emperor's cold words. "To balance the powers, sacrifices must be made." Pitiful are the bones by the wooding river, still the dream of springtime brides. What meaning could an emperor possess, one who only understood the manipulation of power, whose vision was narrow and stubborn, and who harbored no compassion for his subjects? "Uncle, even though the Turks are a nation of soldiers, renowned for their exceptional horsemanship, our court is not without skilled warriors. We have held our own in several engagements. Why have we consistently been unable to defeat the Ashina clan?" His uncle paused, sighed, but remained silent. His uncle was a gentleman, deeply loyal and honorable. The late emperor had recognized his talents and entrusted him with the role of regent before his death. He kept his promise, serving the emperor diligently on the battlefield. The reason he never captured the Turkic royal court was the emperor's repeated obstruction. The emperor was exceptionally suspicious, firmly believing in the art of maintaining balance. If uncle had conquered the Turkic royal court, wouldn't that have been a triumph that overshadowed his own? Seeing the hesitation on uncle's face, I said no more. But as the saying goes, Rome wasn't built in a day. My uncle would understand eventually. "Ian, I know you're deeply disappointed in His Majesty, and I know he's no wise ruler. But court affairs aren't something you can explain in a few words. I'm caught in the middle, many things are beyond my control. I can't just act on my own impulses. You need only know that His Majesty ascending to that throne was the best outcome achievable through complex political maneuvering. I gave a cold laugh. Uncle, this maneuvering means compromising with the aristocratic clans, appeasing the nobility. But has anyone considered the common people? What of the 100,000 soldiers guarding our borders? They've been compromised countless times without ever knowing it. Uncle tried to speak further, but I waved him off and left the tent. Still, I knew his worries were real. True, he commanded a mighty force, yet the army wasn't solely under his command. The emperor had placed many of his own men within its ranks. To forge this 100,000-strong army into a solid block, we needed more victories. Only then could the emperor's men quietly fade away. We couldn't just suddenly raise our banners, shout we're done with this, and rebel. In warfare, the greatest fear is marching without just cause. Everything could be deliberated at length, but one thing could not wait. Winter would pass, leaving our troops strong and our horses fit. The Turks would soon march south again. We had to seize this chance to drive them back home. After consulting with my uncle, I led a small contingent to first mop up the scattered Turkic stragglers near Yenmen Pass, sparing the local women and children from their harassment. With each successful raid, my reputation within the army grew stronger. When the men called me Deputy General Pei, it was now with genuine respect. Calculating the day the main Turkic force would press against our borders, just as in my previous life, my father was personally selected by His Majesty to lead troops to Dingbei Commandery. In that past life, my uncle died just 3 months later. My father corresponded with Kogin Hoeli, but my uncle failed to guard against him. Tactical plans were prematurely exposed, and the garrison troops stationed within Yenmen Pass were sent straight into the Turkic commander's tent under the guise of formal courtesy. My uncle died under mysterious circumstances, slandered as a reckless traitor who betrayed the empire and caused the deaths of 100,000 border troops. After my uncle's death, Pei narrowly escaped with his life, only to be forced back to the frontier by my father. He too perished in the endless yellow sands. Left isolated and powerless within the palace, I could only helplessly watch my loved ones suffer tragic deaths one after another. Thankfully, heaven granted me a second chance. 3 days later, my father arrived bearing an imperial edict. At our first meeting, before he could speak, his eyes welled with tears, the very image of a loving father. "Erlang! You've grown so dark and thin." He wiped his eyes and pulled a pouch from his robe, handing it to me. "Your eldest sister embroidered this herself. She thinks of you day and night in the palace. You must take good care of yourself. If you and Ian are well, I'll have the face to meet your mother when my time comes." Hearing this, my uncle and Su Hengji behind me both looked extremely awkward. 1,000 words boiled down to one: "Father, you truly can't tell your own children apart." I accepted the pouch. The embroidery was exquisite, clearly Peiyu's handiwork. Clearing my throat to suppress a laugh, I stopped my father from uttering more shocking remarks. Only after my father and uncle had left did Su Hengji lean close and whisper, "Is that really your father?" "Authentic as can be. Seems Peiyu's disguise is convincing." I curved my lips into a smile. "My brother has more feminine grace than I do." Su Hengji lowered his lashes and murmured softly, "I prefer women with a bold and spirited demeanor." TSK. As the imperial inspector personally appointed by the emperor, my father began frequenting the commander's tent. No one would suspect him. Who could have imagined that instead of enjoying his good fortune, he would choose to defect and betray his country? Oh, perhaps it was the emperor's orders. Under these circumstances, it's hard to say whether he truly betrayed his country. Night fell, and all sounds ceased. I entered the commander's tent carrying an intercepted carrier pigeon. The letter lay on the table. Candlelight flickered, casting a dim glow as my uncle finished reading the secret missive, his face darkening. I had my men watching father constantly. Tonight, he sneaked out of camp and found a secluded spot to release the pigeon. The moment it vanished from his sight, it was shot down. The proof of father's collusion with the enemy now lay before uncle. What is Pei Shichao doing? Leaking the defense maps led to the fall of Yanmen Pass. Where will the border villagers go now? Uncle, was the defense map the only thing in the letter? I looked up, my expression mocking. What if my father wasn't defecting, but acting loyally toward the emperor? Pei Yan. Watch your tongue. I pinched the secret letter and shook it twice. Isn't it all laid out clearly in this letter? His Majesty would rather sacrifice 3 frontier counties than allow you to grow powerful. Uncle, you claim loyalty to the throne and love for the country, but to whom, exactly? Is an emperor who can abandon his own people truly worthy of the lives of 100,000 soldiers defending the border? Seizing the moment as my uncle's face twisted in shock, I pressed on. Did you see the shoes my father wore today? The uppers are made of shoe brocade. Do you know how precious shoe brocade is? Not only is it costly, but it's also delicate, it can't even touch water. Yet my father wears it casually wherever he goes. For the people on the frontier, having enough to eat is a luxury. Soldiers in winter can't even be properly equipped with cotton-padded coats. But in the imperial capital, good-for-nothings like my father are as common as weeds. While the rich feast on wine and meat, the poor freeze to death on the streets. While soldiers risk their lives defending our homeland, the nobles in the capital only see us as lowly and uncivilized. Uncle, we must protect the simple, innocent people of Daxia, not those privileged nobles who only know how to enjoy themselves and suck the blood of others. My uncle closed his eyes briefly. His Majesty chose your father for this task to reap the benefits without lifting a finger, correct? If it succeeds, the Zhou family's army is crippled, and with my death, His Majesty can sleep soundly. If it fails, your father is exposed, and as his in-law, I'll be implicated, still advantageous for His Majesty. My uncle had spent years on the battlefield, he was no fool ignorant of court politics. He simply hadn't anticipated that the emperor he'd loyally guarded for so long would disregard the people's safety for the sake of political games. What a pity, the dragon throne is occupied by such a heartless pig, utterly devoid of a benevolent ruler's heart. Candlelight reflected on my face. In the bronze mirror, my eyes shone bright as stars, 2 flickering flames. Uncle, we are but fish on the chopping block. Are you truly willing to drag the borderland people and 100,000 soldiers to their deaths for this? After altering the secret letter's contents, I released the carrier pigeon once more. My uncle began to guard against my father. He took the intercepted secret letter and spent the night in earnest discussion with his confidants. The next day, my father walked straight into a meticulously laid trap. My father could die, but not as a traitor. At this moment, uncle and I lacked just cause. History shows that those who follow the righteous path gain widespread support, while those who stray lose it. Since ancient times, he who wins the people's hearts wins the realm. A hasty defection would only earn him the label of a rebel. Yet my uncle commanded formidable forces. With the emperor far away and the heavens high, as long as the people near Dingbei Commandery recognized and appreciated him, he would hold the people's hearts. The emperor could never truly check my uncle's power. My task was singular, to lead the troops, drive the Turks back to their homeland, and make them tremble at the sight of my banners. Erlang, you are not skilled in warfare. With the campaign beginning tomorrow, it would be better for you to stay behind. My father pulled me aside, urging me not to accompany my uncle. I stared at him, speechless for a long while. In my past life, had he also tried to dissuade Peiyu? It was likely the last shred of conscience, unwilling to watch his own son die alongside his brother-in-law. That's why my father sent Peiyu away. But when Dingbei Commandery fell, those who died horribly, whose sons were they? Whose fathers? Father speaks wisely. Tomorrow, I shall not burden my uncle. My father smiled with relief, handing me a letter to deliver by swift horse to the post station tomorrow. Holding the letter, I stood beneath the tree. Yellow dust swirled in the air, day after day, unchanged. So this was how Peiyu had survived in my past life. Yet it was merely a desperate clinging to life. For power and to eliminate all traces, Peiyu ultimately met his end at Yanmen Pass. A father without compassion, a husband without loyalty. My father deserved to be outmaneuvered by me in this life. Had he been a kind father, perhaps neither I nor Peiyu would have gone astray. Our family was fundamentally flawed from the start. Now that the truth is laid bare, it only follows logic. Will father be going to the front lines? My father's smile held a hint of satisfaction. Naturally. Your old man here fought alongside your uncle back in the day. Really? Father never mentioned it before. It was so many years ago. Why bring it up now? Behind us, Uncle's voice drifted over. What are you two talking about? I called out. Father says he fought alongside Uncle in the past. Uncle smiled, his expression tinged with wistful nostalgia. Sure, Chow served as my deputy commander back then. He was skilled in martial arts and handsome. Your mother took a liking to him at first sight. I lowered my eyelashes, unable to picture what my mother might have looked like. My father paused for a moment before replying, yes, I met your late mother in Dingbei Commandery. She loved horseback riding most. It's a pity she never got to ride again after coming to the capital with me. Father, do you feel guilty too? My mother was the first gift my father offered to His Majesty. Amidst the power struggles, she was the first to die. I wonder if she regretted it when we reunited on the Bridge of Sighs in my past life. Half a month after the correspondence, the Turkic forces won several small-scale guerrilla skirmishes. This was a trap deliberately set by my uncle, waiting for my father and the Turks to fall into it. Though I should have left the battlefield, I now led 2,000 cavalry in a flanking assault on the Turkic camp. With soft cloth wrapped around our horses' legs for silent night travel, my 2,000 elite troops charged straight toward the lightly guarded encampment. The Turks still dreamt of conquering the south. Prince Godo, son of Khagan Huili, was inside the main tent at that very moment. Amidst the blaze, I single-handedly captured Godo alive. In my past life, both Peiyu and my uncle perished by his hand. When Peiyu died, his head was severed. Godo tied it to his horse's tail and dragged it along the walls of Dingbei Commandery. This time, it was Godo's turn to die far from home. Report. Deputy General Pei has captured Godo alive and returns victorious. In the command tent, my uncle could not contain his excitement and came out with his men to greet me. Peiyu has fulfilled his mission. Meanwhile, the ambush my uncle and I had arranged also brought frequent reports of success. Only my father would never return alive. Barren mountains, withered trees, a field strewn with corpses. Crows perched on branches, fixated on the bodies below. My father and his trusted men all fell by the blades of the Turks. On his person was the final secret letter I had arranged for someone to place. It stated that his feigned surrender was a ruse, the genuine defensive maps had never been delivered. I also forged a tactical plan in his handwriting. I wondered if the Turks would search the bodies. If they found the fake plan and marched down a path of no return, that would be ideal. Of course, if they didn't search, it wouldn't matter. After all, I had nothing to lose. The Turkic army suffered heavy losses, and Prince Godo was captured alive. My uncle's prestige at the frontier reached unparalleled heights. Though we lost my father, it was no great loss. The imperial rewards from the capital arrived swiftly. I imagine the emperor must have been grinding his teeth in frustration. This time, the honors fell primarily upon me. Oh, it was Peiyu. His Majesty, in his golden words, declared that heroes emerge in youth. To encourage me, he granted me the Pei family's noble title. Accompanying the honors was a secret letter from Peiyu. Sis. Take it easy on the victories. You've earned too many merits, the emperor might even favor me just to appease you. I nearly forgot, deep within the imperial harem, I have a brother who serves as a consort. In my past life, the empress's family also perished amidst imperial intrigues. Before I departed, I specifically instructed Pei Yu to leverage the situation. Forming an alliance with the Empress would be ideal. I wonder how Pei Yu and the Empress are faring now. As night fell, I sat beneath a tree, a pot of wine in hand, drinking alone. I raised my cup to the bright moon, and with my shadow, we become three. Behind me, Hu Jiangnan approached carrying a plate of beef. Pei Yu, you. Take care of yourself. Hu Jiangnan's face held a hint of pity as he offered an awkward consolation. The entire army knew of my father's death. Those unaware assumed I was utterly heartbroken. Moonlight fell upon Hu Jiangnan's face. He looked much more robust and tanned than when we first met. I smiled, patting the empty space beside me, gesturing for him to join me. Young Marquis, you've distinguished yourself this time. When do you plan to return to the capital? Hu Jiangnan shook his head. I wish to remain in Dingbei Commandery. Oh. Haven't you suffered enough? He replied, it's not suffering. That day, when you sparred with the soldiers, I saw the true man in you. My coming to the frontier to serve wasn't arranged by my family. My elder brother is the crown prince of the Chongyan Marquis, the rightful young marquis. In the capital, I only knew how to eat, drink, and play. I caused trouble, and father called me a good-for-nothing. In a fit of anger, I ran off to Dingbei Commandery to enlist. Perhaps father was right. Back then, I really was useless. Even after coming to Dingbei Commandery, I relied on others to look after me, yet still thought myself superior. But I feel different now. Deputy General Pei, thank you for those military strokes that day. I want to become a real soldier too. I stood up, patted his shoulder, and handed him the flask of wine. No matter what happens later, at least in this moment, both he and I were genuine. He tilted his head back and drank it all in one gulp, bursting into laughter. Refreshing! After gathering our things, both my uncle and I felt we should strike while the iron was hot and push straight into the Turkic royal court. My uncle would hold the rear guard, while I led the assault. Uncle, don't worry. When the champion Marquis conquered Langjiaxu, he was only 22. Heroes have always emerged in youth, perhaps I'm a young prodigy too. My uncle shook his head with a wry smile, patting my shoulder, be cautious in all things. I await your triumphant return. Victory! I raised my long sword, and the cavalry behind me echoed the cry of victory. Imperial decree flies like a star, sealing the sword. Bidding farewell to the sovereign, overnight we take Lulan. Uncle, wait until I bring back the head of Kagan Haili to serve as your urinal. Just as I led my troops straight into the royal court, the emperor's edict arrived belatedly. The emperor declared that invading the Turkic royal court would exhaust the people and drain resources. Today, one should cultivate virtue and allow the frontier populace to catch their breath. He intended to negotiate peace with the Turks and marry a Turkic princess. The eunuch bearing the edict chased me all the way but failed to catch up. The messenger reported that uncle received the edict but declared I had already led the troops into battle. How could you undertake such a major campaign without consulting His Majesty? Before uncle could respond, the questioning eunuch was berated by uncle's deputy commander. When the Turks invaded Dingbei Commandery, did we seek the emperor's permission before counterattacking? When generals are in the field, they need not obey every imperial command. The emperor's actions stemmed solely from his fear of my uncle's growing power. But he was destined for disappointment. As I led my troops back, my uncle heard news of our victory and came to greet us. I dismounted and handed him the brocade box. I have fulfilled my mission. The head of Conli Kihan, a gift for my uncle. The crowd lining the road erupted in fierce shouts. 18 years later, the iron cavalry of Great Xia crushed the Turkic royal court. The shadow that had hung over the borderlands people finally lifted. I was no longer my uncle's nephew, I was a young general renowned for his military genius. When history's meticulous brushstrokes paint the tale, my name shall stand among the greats. After the victory banquet, I feigned illness and stayed behind, secretly leading men back to the imperial capital. News of my father's death reached the capital, leaving only my stepmother and Pei Su in the Pei residence. My informant said Pei Su seemed to have a son raised in a separate courtyard. The emperor certainly has leisurely pursuits. But with my repeated extraordinary victories at the frontier, would he truly dare to bring Pei Su into the palace as he did in my previous life? Moreover, this time, the empress's father had navigated his position with skill, never giving the emperor any leverage. My return to the capital was specifically to meet personally with the Chui clan, the empress's maternal family. The Chui family knew many inner secrets. Hosting me was the eldest son of the Chui household, Chui Pinghui. Greetings, loyal and valiant Marquis. The Chui young master was as graceful as orchids and musk, refined and handsome. Even his folded fan, held still, exuded elegance. The Chui family has but one request: should the loyal and valiant Marquis one day vie for the throne, the emperor's consort must be a daughter of the Chui clan. I paused, raising an eyebrow slightly. The Chui family's intelligence is remarkably swift. My younger sister discovered this by chance. Chui Pinghui carried himself with an air of refined elegance, like a gentleman of grace and simplicity. He rose and poured tea for me. Pinghui began his studies at 5, mastered literature by 8, has thoroughly read the classics and histories, and possesses some understanding of military affairs. Among all the young men in the imperial capital, none are more suited to the Marquis than I. The Chui family possesses modest wealth, which could also become a valuable asset to the Marquis in the future. As the capital's most handsome man, Chui's earnest gaze made his request nearly impossible to refuse. His beauty was my undoing. How can you be certain I'll ascend the throne? What if I and Pei Yu switch places? Wouldn't you, the esteemed eldest son of the Chui family, be the one at a loss? Chui Pinghui chuckled lightly. Your lordship is no ordinary man. Why would you toil so hard only to make a wedding gown for someone else? After sealing the alliance with the Chui family, I returned to the frontier with a portion of the funds they provided. Ever since subduing the Turks, people had begun to sense this truth. Countless individuals came to pledge their allegiance. Everyone knew my uncle sought no glory for himself, that the loyal and valiant Marquis now commanded the Zhou family's army. After several probing maneuvers, the emperor could no longer sit idly by and summoned me to the capital. Citing unrest in the frontier, I delayed my arrival for another year and a half. During that time, I gathered strength and recruited troops in Dingbei Commandery. When it comes to power, might makes right. I was the one who subdued the Turkic court, and I was the one commanding the heavy troops. As for the emperor, he holds nothing but the hollow title of the Great Xiao's rightful ruler. What's bloodline worth? Didn't the Great Xiao's throne itself come snatched from the last emperor of the previous dynasty? Doesn't the emperor revel in political maneuvering, obsessing over maintaining balance? I'll see just what kind of balance he can achieve now. To Pei Yu, I sent 800 imperial guards openly, under the guise of birthday celebrations. Not only would the emperor dare not touch him, but even if he truly lost his mind, he'd have to see if I'd give him the chance. Hu Jiangnin has remained by my side. His family was more than happy to hedge their bets, unconcerned with his tricky maneuvers. Publicly, they staged a drama of severed father-son ties, but privately, he never failed to curry favor with me. The old fox is quite the schemer. Since that day of earnest conversation, Wu Jiangnin has been utterly loyal to me, risking his life several times to help me reclaim lost territories. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. Now Hu Jiangnin is like a jade polished free of dust, or a sword drawn from its scabbard, sharp and radiant. Is the general heading to subdue Gao Cheng? Hu Jiangnin asked, though he knew the answer. He couldn't accompany me, matters here still required his attention. Departure in 3 days. Will the general be taking Su Hengji along? I turned my head, a smile in my eyes. Hengji is my personal guard. Naturally, he'll return with me. He bit his lip, his neck flushing crimson. Whatever Su Hengji can do, I can do too. Oh. What exactly can Hengji do? Hu Jiangnan turned his head, awkwardly insisting, anyway, I won't be any worse than him. I lowered my gaze to hide the amusement in my eyes and smoothed his collar. Wait for my triumphant return. Only after Hu Jiangnan left did my uncle emerge, smiling. A graceful lady is a gentleman's ideal mate. That eldest son of the Chui family has visited several times too. Hengji grew up under my watch, but this young man from the Hu family has truly transformed. Ian, which one do you favor? I smiled. Which emperor has only one beloved confidant? With all the toil of conquering the world, having a few more beloved companions isn't such a bad thing. My uncle laughed heartily. When do you plan to swap identities back with Peiyu, Ian? Eventually, it must be proclaimed to the world. I've risked life and limb. If my name isn't recorded in the annals, wouldn't that be a tremendous loss? Aren't you afraid someone will oppose a woman ascending the throne? Not in the least. Let them challenge me then. I subdued the Turkic court myself. I personally beheaded Khan Huaili. I didn't arrive here by accident. I'm not like those who wait for power handed down by their fathers. What I have, I fought for myself. My uncle clapped his hands and laughed heartily, excellent. That's the spirit. 3 months later, I returned having subdued Gao Cheng. From then on, both eastern and western territories were taken over by the Zhou family's army. The 13 frontier commanderies recognized only the military governors, not the emperor. The emperor sent an edict from afar, ordering me to come to the capital and marry Princess Changping. Traditionally, imperial sons-in-law were forbidden to command troops, yet the emperor dared not openly demand I surrender my authority. On the day the edict arrived, I cleaved it in two with my sword, let out a cold laugh, and returned to my camp. Is the loyal and valiant Marquis defying the imperial decree? I'd rather ask His Majesty what he's doing. Before the envoys, I sneered savagely, is His Majesty planning a rebellion? Also delivered was a secret letter from Peiyu. It stated he would take a fake death potion, then be escorted from the palace by the Empress and the Chui family. The blame for my sister's murder would then fall squarely on the emperor. By the time Peiyu had made his escape and news of the imperial consort's death spread throughout Great Xia, the emperor could no longer sit idly by. He knew full well that I now commanded formidable forces, having built up my power in the northwest for years. Not only did the frontier regions lie under my control, but half the commanderies and counties beyond the imperial capital had slipped beyond his grasp. The emperor, ever fond of maintaining a balance of power, finally yielded. The imperial edict granting him the title of prince arrived in Longxi alongside Peiyu. After so many years, Peiyu and I met again. Thankfully, this time, my little brother and I were alive to see each other. Big sister. You really are this. Peiyu showered me with praise. You have no idea. Ever since you conquered Langjiaxu and became undefeated in battle, the emperor shuts up whenever he sees me. I strut around the palace like I own the place. You certainly seem to enjoy being imperial consort. I hear no more heirs have been born in the palace since you entered. Peiyu gave a bashful smile. Well, I was worried the emperor might lose his mind, so I solved the problem at its root, made him permanently incapable. I nearly choked on my tea. No wonder the emperor had no children, Peiyu had taken matters into his own hands. Right, he truly was meant to be a consort in the palace. A true master of palace intrigue. I hear you and the empress get along quite well. A faint blush spread across Peiyu's cheeks. Yang Yang is a fine woman, sister. Once you ascend the throne, remember to grant me a marriage decree with her. Only after entering the palace did I learn Yang Yang has always admired my poetry. We found ourselves in perfect harmony, like a well-tuned qin and se, and felt an instant kinship. I curved my lips into a smile. In my past life, though the Empress and I battled for years, Lady Chui always acted with integrity. I respected her character. Who would have thought Peiyu and the Empress shared such a connection? At least the Emperor did something right. I asked Peiyu if he wanted to offer incense for our father. Peiyu paused, then smiled bitterly, better not. I'm afraid I'd lose control and burn his spirit tablet. Peiyu and I shared a knowing smile. After a long silence, he sighed softly, if only I'd been as brave and skilled in battle as my elder sister in my past life, things wouldn't have ended that way. I patted his shoulder. Everyone has their own path. Don't let the past weigh down your present. Isn't it enough that we both strive our hardest in this life? Both Peiyu and I remained cautious, never revealing the truth of our rebirth. Especially around the dead. Their deaths were too obvious. If others had experienced the same strange fate, we siblings would be the ones getting beaten. Better to be careful. Just as the whole realm was speculating that the Emperor had killed the consort to intimidate me, a rumor suddenly surfaced. The loyal and valiant prince's half-sister had borne an illegitimate child, fathered by the Emperor himself. I asked Peiyu, but isn't the Emperor incapable of fathering children? Peiyu grinned. That child of Peisu's is indeed the Emperor's. But I've already spread the news back to the palace that the Emperor cannot father children. I raised an eyebrow and smiled, instantly grasping Peiyu's meaning. The Emperor was inherently suspicious, how could he not doubt Peisu? If Peisu defected to me, substituting one for the other, and that child wasn't truly his, what could he possibly do? What a pity, that was the Emperor's only child in this lifetime. Let's go, you. We must return to the capital and vindicate our sister. I've already lost one sister to the palace as a consort, and another sister bore the Emperor a child. With so many women in this world, why must the Emperor single out my Pei family for his cruelty? This time, I returned to the imperial capital once more. By imperial decree, no general may return to the capital without summons. But now, no one dared to block my entry. Everyone knew that half of the Great Xiao's affairs were now decided by the loyal and valiant prince. The Emperor sitting in the capital was nothing but a figurehead. A decaying empire would inevitably reach its end. On the day of my return, the Pei residence held a banquet. My stepmother and Peisu both offered cautious, forced smiles. With father dead, Peisu could not enter the imperial harem. Yet she had a son of uncertain parentage, making life in the capital exceedingly difficult. Those familiar with us knew my relationship with Peisu was strained. Even when she used my name to network, she drew scorn. Meanwhile, Peiyu had tirelessly spread rumors for years, claiming my mother died under suspicious circumstances, that my father had deliberately killed her to marry my stepmother. Now that I kept my distance from my stepmother and stepsister, no one said much, only muttering that it was retribution. Brother, are you truly willing to become a traitor to both loyalty and righteousness? At the banquet, Peisu held her wine cup and spoke with feigned sincerity. My child is also of the Pei bloodline. When he claims his ancestral rights and ascends the throne, you, dear brother, will naturally enjoy boundless glory and wealth. One stroke of the pen cannot write two Peis. Having your own nephew become emperor is perfectly legitimate, isn't that splendid? I nearly laughed out loud. Peisu, who taught you to speak such nonsense? You are truly beyond redemption. Your illegitimate son, does he even deserve the throne? But rest assured, I still have use for you and your son. Peiyu. Peisu's face darkened. Do you truly intend to rebel? Don't you fear disturbing father's peace in the afterlife? You bore a child out of wedlock, yet father didn't rise from the grave. That shows his magnanimity. If he could tolerate you, he'd tolerate me too. I reached out, snatched the wine cup from Peisu's hand, and with a cold laugh, forced it into my stepmother's mouth beside me. Peisu tried to stop me, but how could a frail woman possibly overpower me? She could only cry out in pain and throw herself onto her mother. Peiyu! You've killed your own mother. I tapped the table, coldly watching my stepmother's face turn ashen. This wine. You brought it, Pei Su. How appalling. Did you two intend to harm me? I am an imperial official. Do you know the punishment for poisoning one? You and that little beast of yours won't need me to speak, others will see you off. Even in this dire situation, Pei Su still dared to poison me. So this is the kind of fool the emperor favors. I suppose that's what they call birds of a feather. Do you know why the emperor sent you to deal with me instead of stepping forward himself? Because he wanted to kill two birds with one stone. You thought bearing his child would secure your place, but he never intended to acknowledge that child at all. Pei Su burst into tears. Impossible. If you hadn't interfered, I would have entered the palace long ago. I chuckled. You're not fooling yourself with your own lies, are you? Keep the bullshit for your buddies, don't start believing it yourself. Why did the imperial decree to enter the palace land on Pei Yan? Did she beg for it? You and the emperor are just two cowards hiding in the shadows, shooting arrows from afar. You crave power but fear responsibility. The world doesn't hand out such favors. I shrugged. Oh dear, little sister, look. Your mother's dead. Watching my stepmother writhe in agony, I slowly curved my lips into a smile. Pei Su still lived in this mansion, thinking she was just fighting a sisterly rival with the emperor backing her, that a cup of poisoned wine would solve everything. But I wasn't the motherless eldest daughter they could toy with anymore. Pei Su, how does it feel to have killed your own mother? Pei Su turned, her eyes burning with hatred. Don't hate me so much. Even if you do, what can you possibly do to me? After leaving, I had Pei Su's child brought before me. Damn brat. He looked like both Pei Su and his father, and the sight of him made my blood boil. The child tilted his head back, his gaze toward me filled with hostility. Are you Pei Yu? I nodded, waiting for him to speak. Rebellious traitor. This realm belongs to my father, the emperor. Kneel and pay homage at once, or face the wrath of his armies. TSK. What an unpleasant child. I bent down, after all, he was just a boy. The bloodthirsty aura radiating from me turned his face ashen. I had no desire to bicker with a child, I merely wanted to see if he resembled an emperor. Very good. Quite the resemblance. Take him to the palace. Prince Zhongyong. How dare you trespass through the palace gates? The emperor's guards brandished their swords, their voices tinged with fear. They feared me. Of course they feared me. Power, whose hands it rests and determines who commands the world. Step aside. I come bearing good news for the emperor today. What good news? Someone mustered the courage to ask. I glanced at him and kicked him aside. Who are you to question me? The vermilion gates remained unchanged from my past life, and the palace interior was just as I remembered. In my past life, I died before these very vermilion gates, sword in hand. What did the emperor say then? He said I was overreaching. Now, it's my turn to question him. After I entered the palace, Su Hongxi also led his troops into the capital. My army was stationed 10 li outside the city walls. Within the city, doors were shut tight. Even common folk sensed the crisis, hiding indoors, unaware of the sky outside. The emperor sat upon the throne in the grand hall. Seeing me enter without summons, radiating a murderous aura, he forced a semblance of composure. Lord Zhongyong, do you intend to rebel? Do you not fear the condemnation of the people? I curved my lips. Why, Your Majesty, you make it sound quite terrifying. Your servant has no intention of rebellion. I come before you today for the sake of the succession of the great Xia dynasty. I lifted the child from behind me, who was frozen in terror. Your Majesty, look at this child. Does he not resemble you? This is the son my sister risked her life to bear for you. Are you pleased? With my command over the elite troops and the backing of the great clans, even if I demanded the emperor abdicate today, he could only hurl insults at me before slinking away to make room. The emperor's face twisted with humiliation. He blinked his eyes shut, finally forcing out the words, "He is my son. As long as your majesty acknowledges him, that is enough. At tomorrow's morning court, proclaim this child as crown prince. If your excellency were to seize the throne outright, none would dare speak against it. Why then the need for a crown prince?" Cui Pinghui asked me this after we finished discussing state affairs. I curved my lips into a smile, offering no explanation. Capturing the imperial capital without bloodshed would be ideal. My soldiers have fought alongside me through life and death. If possible, I wish to spare them the toll of power struggles. Pinghui, you've been to Dingbei Commandery. The people there endure great hardship. But look at the capital. When Pei Su was favored, a single garment could sustain a family of 3 on the frontier for 5 years. The common folk are truly simple-hearted. As long as they have food to eat and clothes to wear, they can endure even the hardest times. A ruler who doesn't care for his subjects doesn't deserve such honest, steadfast people. Cui Pinghui bowed to me in the manner of a subject. Can your lordship guarantee the people won't suffer in the future? I laughed aloud. While I live, I certainly can. As for after my death, that becomes the responsibility of future generations. Pinghui, nothing in this world remains unchanged. When the Great Xia was founded, was it not to rescue the people from the fires of suffering? I took Cui Pinghui's hand. I only hope that, at least during our lifetimes, we can ensure the people of this era have ample food and clothing. Cui Pinghui's gaze softened as he clasped my hand in return. This is precisely my wish, though I dared not ask. The next day, the emperor grudgingly acknowledged Pei Su's son. Pei Su finally realized her ambition, ascending to the position of empress. As for the former empress, she divorced the emperor in a ceremony witnessed by me and the court ministers. What empress in the world divorces her emperor? The emperor was nearly beside himself with fury. I smiled faintly. You'll have one after this. The empress bore a faint resemblance to her former self. In private, she performed a deep curtsy before me. Your excellency truly sets an example for all women under heaven. When I learned it was you who subdued the Turkic court in Gaochang, I wept in the palace. We women follow our fathers at home and our husbands after marriage. Had you not shown me this path, I would never have imagined a woman could achieve such deeds in her lifetime. When your great cause is accomplished, I and my sisters wish to take the imperial examinations, dedicating ourselves wholeheartedly to His Majesty. Excellent! I clapped my hands and laughed heartily. We need spirited women like you. When the time comes, you and my younger brother will serve in the same court. Don't let him outshine you. The Empress smiled gently. I couldn't call her Empress now, she had a name, Cui Yao. When we both return to dust, history's pages will still bear her name. Half a month later, the Emperor and Empress hosted a banquet in the palace to welcome me home. Su Hengji smoothed my robes and chuckled. Our emperor seems to be learning how to host a banquet with hidden dangers. He'd better have the skill to pull it off. When I entered the palace, I still wore my sword at my side, drawing curious glances. The emperor and Pei Su sat at the head of the table. Pei Su eyed me with mischief, scheming some new foolishness. Once everyone had arrived, Pei Su rose as if impatient, pointing at me and declaring loudly, I summoned you all today to reveal a truth. The loyal and valiant prince is actually a woman. She is not Pei Yu, but my elder sister, Pei Yan. The court officials at the banquet were stunned by this revelation, their murmurs of discussion filling the air. The emperor's eyes twinkled with amusement. Pei Yan, you, a woman, have been appearing in public. Did you truly believe you could deceive the heavens? If you apologize now, I may overlook your past transgressions. Otherwise, you will destroy the century-old reputation of the Pei family. Pei Su chimed in, Sister, you wouldn't dare deny it, would you? The ministers are all here. Do you dare to undergo a physical examination? The two of them traded barbs, seemingly clutching at a perfect advantage. Yet I couldn't help but laugh aloud. I am indeed a woman. Why would I refuse to admit it? My straightforward confession left Pei Su and the Emperor stunned. You. Since you've confessed, why won't you plead guilty and face justice? Face justice? What justice? Your Majesty, have you lost your mind? I drew my sword, cleaving the table before me in two. Scanning the room, no one dared meet my gaze. The borders are now secure, the Empire stable. I carved this out with my own blade and spear. Surely you don't think my achievements go unrecognized simply because I am a woman? I turned to face the assembled ministers. Wherever my gaze fell, none dared meet my eyes. Chui, the clan leader, spoke first. Of course not. Your Excellency's merits are known throughout the realm. Who would dare question them? The Chui family, having long known your true identity, would still aid you in achieving your goals. His voice softened as he added, Your Excellency has endured immense hardships in campaigns across the land. I only worry, has Pinghui been tending to you properly? Pinghui has long admired Your Excellency. Thank you for your concern. Chui's words extinguished the heated debate. Indeed, even if I am Pei Yan, my military achievements and the people's support are undeniable realities. The others quickly realized this, inwardly cursing the Chui clan for their cunning old foxes, and began considering whether any suitable young men from their own families could be sent to serve by my side. I strode forward, sword in hand. Your Majesty, do you know how long we've waited for this day? I merely wish for you to witness clearly how you fell to a woman's hand. Pei Su, your son is now crown prince. Once the emperor dies, you shall be empress dowager. I gazed at Pei Su and spoke slowly. Which do you choose, your son, or his majesty? With that, I seized Pei Su's hand and thrust a dagger into it. Pei Su trembled, her gaze fixed on the emperor. Your Majesty. Mother Su, don't trust her. Pei Su held the dagger, frozen. The emperor gazed at her with deep affection, reminiscing about their happier times. Pei Su couldn't help but be moved, leaning closer. In the next instant, the emperor suddenly snatched the dagger and plunged it into Pei Su's neck. Save the emperor! The emperor cried out in panic, yet no one in the chamber dared approach. Several royal elders looked on with pained expressions, their faces ashen, yet none dared defy my wrath to save the emperor. Everyone knew the emperor was a spent force. The true power now was mine, Prince Pei Yan, the loyal and valiant. The world had already changed its master. I caught the blade in time, leaving Pei Su with only a superficial wound. Your Majesty! How dare you treat me this way? Pei Su snatched the dagger and lashed out in fury. The emperor had already been kicked by me, his lungs pierced. With Pei Su still holding the dagger, he inevitably found himself at a disadvantage. In the end, Pei Su personally ended the emperor's life. You forced my hand. The emperor tumbled to the ground, meeting a most undignified end. Pei Su turned, grabbed the terrified, sobbing crown prince, and screamed like a madwoman, I am Empress Dowager. My son, you shall be emperor. Before the words faded, she froze, staring down at the cold steel blade piercing her own chest, held by the crown prince. Wiping his tears, the crown prince declared, I avenged my father. Now, Lord Jun, you will help me ascend the throne. Pei Su's body arched backward. I seized her throat and whispered, Fool. Did you truly believe I would spare you? I merely wished to witness their family devouring each other. Behind me, the ministers stood frozen in silence. I turned with a cold glance, What are you waiting for? The emperor is dead. Hurry and enthrone the crown prince. I stroked the crown prince's blood-stained cheek. How pitiful. A nation cannot exist a single day without a ruler. Crown Prince, ascend the throne. 3 years later, the new emperor, citing his own lack of talent and virtue, abdicated the throne to me, claiming he was content to dwell in the imperial seat. After several refusals, I ascended the throne amid the entreaties of the ministers. I changed the dynasty's name to Zhou, established the era named Jinwu, and appointed the son of the Chui clan as the principal consort. I also installed Su Hengji, the northern general, and Hu Jiangnan, the son of the Marquis of Chongyan, as secondary consorts. The empress's accession brought a breath of fresh air to the court. From aristocratic families to commoners, women now entered public service and stepped onto the political stage. The empress also established the position of Grand Princess. After 3 generations of female rulers, when people later read ancient texts declaring women unfit for public office, they could only marvel at how the world had changed beyond recognition. After my ascension to the throne, discontent naturally arose among many royal clans, bringing both crisis and new beginnings. But this posed no real threat. After all, I had conquered the realm through martial prowess. Anyone wishing to oppose me would have to carefully weigh their own capabilities. I prioritized the welfare of my people, lightening taxes and corvée labor to allow the land to recover. I opened border markets for trade and revived agriculture, ushering in a scene of flourishing prosperity. During another spring hunt, Peiyu accompanied me. After discussing state affairs, he suddenly chuckled. I hear the northern land sent twin princes as tribute this time, both exceptionally handsome. Sister, does this mean new additions to your harem? I shot down a hare with an arrow, my lips curving into a smile. We'll see when the time comes. The story concludes. Thank you all for your companionship. See you in the next chapter.